Good morning, and good morning to Marie Tidball, Labour MP for Penistone and Stocksbridge since 2024. Joining our MPs panel, we have three. Welcome back, Marie.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, we've got two Maries, one of which is not David Reid, Conservative MP for Exmouth and Exeter East. David, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And Marie Goldman is with us, Lib Dem MP for Chelmsford since 2024. So, hi, Marie.
Hi, good morning, Nicky.
I'm not going to call you by your surname, so I'm going to have to go Marie Labour. Marie Liberal.
Fine by me.
Okay, that's that. Let's start straight off with Mr. Trump's plan for Gaza. Katie and Boreham Wood, a call coming up. Hi, Katie. I'll just sum up some of the stuff that he said in that press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. He said the US will take over and own the Gaza Strip. He envisioned a long-term US ownership of the territory, rebuilding it. He said Gaza is a symbol of death and destruction. The only reason people want to go back there is because they've nowhere else to go. So he suggested other countries, Jordan and Egypt and other states, take in Palestinians. He said Gaza could become the Riviera of the Middle East, where the world's people, as he put it, could live, echoing actually what his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, once said, that Gaza had very valuable waterfront property. He gave a very vague answer when asked on whether he supported a two-state solution, which has for a long time been the American position. He said there was high-level support amongst unnamed leaders. He did not rule out sending US troops to secure Gaza. There's more in there. That's the bones of it. I think we got a clip. I'm just being told we got a clip. Let's hear the man's voice. Let's hear the president. Here he is.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job.
Marie Tidball, what do you make of it?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is that what Trump said is a matter for the US government. I can only speak to the policy.
It's a matter for everybody. It's a matter for the world.
I can only speak to the policy of the UK government, and that
okay.
is, and
all
that
right.
is.
Okay.
No, well, let me just say what that is.
We know what it is.
Well, no, well, your listeners
I was
may
going
not.
to comment on the leader of the free world.
I am commenting, and the answer is that we think it's right that Palestinian people should return to their homes and rebuild their lives. It has been the policy of the Labour Party and is our policy in government that we need a two-state solution, and that's what we are focused on. It's great that we are getting aid into Palestine. The UK has put 70 million of our aid directly on top of what we've given already from the crisis reserve pool,
which is terrific. Allow me, not what I'm asking. We'll bring the caller in, Katie and Boreham Wood, and we'll see if David Reid and Marie Goldman have it in them to comment on what the president actually says. We'll find out in a minute. Katie and Boreham Wood, what would you like to say?
I mean, I don't agree personally with this plan, and I question whether Trump is trying to push the nations around to actually do something. Egypt and Jordan are disagreeing, and yet they have not taken in anybody. Jordan technically was a Palestinian state set up over 100 years ago, and Egypt has increased its border protection, and currently has a load of Palestinian terrorists or prisoners, whichever you prefer to call them, that no other Arab country wants. So they're not given an alternate. None of them want them. So there's that. I wonder that. And also, why is the Arab world yet again not? And why is the Arab world yet again not funding? And a question for the MP from Labour is, why is our government funding UNRWA? And technically, they are funding a NGO that has been proven time and time again to be colluding with Hamas and was involved in holding hostage a UK citizen.
I hear, Katie, I hear and understand your position. We'll get back to Trump's policy, but Marie Tidball, you have to answer that, the funding of UNRWA.
Look, I think it's right that we fund bodies that enable us to get to a position of where we can reach a sustainable ceasefire in between Israel and Palestine. And that's why we're putting in the aid that we've put in, as I've said already. It's why we are committed to reaching a two-state solution in order to move forward in something that has gone on for 14 months. And we're seeing the return of hostages, and we are seeing the ceasefire underway at the moment. But we have to get to a point where that is sustainable. And, I'm a member of parliament elected by people in my constituency. So it's right that I speak front and centre to our own UK foreign policy position. And that's what I've set out very clear to you this morning.
OK, this is a running sore globally for all sides, for both sides, for every side. OK, Marie Goldman, who's going to have that gumption and the courage to actually comment on what the president said? Probably Marie Goldman, Lib Dem MP. You're probably slightly more able to. Marie.
Yeah, well, I think maybe it's then down to the Liberal Democrats to say that it is absolutely wrong. Now, Trump is incredibly unpredictable, and what we're seeing here are, frankly, some very, very bizarre comments coming from Trump. And the bottom line is we don't know whether he's serious about them. I think Katie's comment about, maybe he's just trying to push the nations around in that region, trying to make them do something. Maybe that is what he's trying to do. But the bottom line is he risks totally destabilising the region. He's acting like a bull in a china shop, and it's really dangerous and really worrying, and we have to call it out for what it is, and what he's proposing is against international law, and it's wrong.
Some people are saying it's ethnic cleansing. What do you say to those people?
I think there's a real danger that that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. That's incredibly dangerous. And I think it's kind of ironic, really, that Trump is talking about closing borders to America and stopping other people coming into that country. And yet he's talking about potentially maybe sending troops into, he's certainly not ruled it out, sending troops into Gaza. And that country has nothing to do with him. So I think it is totally destabilising for that region, potentially. And I really worry that he doesn't know what he's doing. I hope there's a bigger grand plan and that it has the best interests of the world at heart. But I'm not too sure that he does. And we need to call him out for it.
If you were in government, you would share Marie Tidball's reluctance to criticise Donald Trump because they have to work with him. Would you not, Marie Goldman?
Look, I think there are times when we need to have constructive criticism, and I think it is right to call out even our own allies when we see that they're doing things that are dangerous for the world, and that's the point of diplomacy. Of course, we need to work with each other, but frankly, just going along with it isn't the right way to be. We need a proper two-state solution for Palestine and for Israel, and that's what we should be working towards, not destabilising and trying to put up some condos on a nice bit of sea frontage.
Is it dangerous, David Reid?
So I think the situation dictates international support now. I spent time out there with Parliament in the West Bank and in Jordan just before Christmas, analysing the situation, and you could feel that tension. There has been death and destruction for many decades now, and the situation is not improving. So it's all well and good to stand from the sidelines and say that there needs to be a two-state solution, which
What do you think of the idea to make Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East?
OK, so how President Trump speaks is quite unfamiliar to how we do politics here in the UK. Yep. He comes from a business background. He said it in a way that doesn't sit well with many people in this country. But the underlying point is, unless there is international support, this situation is not going to sort itself out. There has been cyclical violence in that region, across Palestine, across the West Bank, across the Golan Heights. This will carry on going if we don't step in and intervene. Now, the issue that I have is around Jordan. Now, Jordan has been an ally with us for a long time. I'm a former Royal Marine. I've spent many, many months out in Jordan. They've had significant internal pressures from lots of migration from places like Syria, Iraq, Libya, and they are struggling as a country. They're one of the most water-depleted countries on earth. And having spoken to officials from the Jordanian government, I know that they are worried about an influx of from refugees from Palestine. So I think we need to be doing all we can to make sure that Jordan is in a position to be able to work with the international community if this does go ahead.
Does it look like ethnic cleansing to you?
So my understanding of ethnic cleansing is that you go into a country and you essentially wipe that country out. You kill the people and you try to remove their history. I'm not seeing that at the moment. What I'm actually seeing is the inverse, which is international support to try and stop the death and destruction, which we know will carry on. So having been in the military and having gone out to conflict zones and seen what happens with unexploded ordnance, this will carry on, and multiple generations will still be affected by this in many years to come.
Marie Goldman, why do you think it looks to some people, and you mentioned that there's a danger of it looking like this to you? I'm not, as people know, I don't take a position. I'm saying what people say. Do you think it looks like? What would you say to David Reid, who said this is no way ethnic cleansing?
I think when you are talking about wiping out a population from a particular area, it doesn't really matter the kind of semantics.
What do you mean by wiping out?
Well, when Trump is saying that he wants essentially all Palestinians to leave Gaza, and he only wants just a few of them to be able to return, that feels to me like he is cleansing.
These are legal definitions.
But we're talking about the principle of it, right? The principle.
We are talking about legal definitions. This is not ethnic cleansing.
Well, okay, let's talk about removing a population from a particular area, not allowing some of them to return. Whether we talk about legal definitions or not, I don't think that that's right, and I don't think the President of the United States has the right to do that either. So that's what we should really be talking about, is the principle of saying that a people who have lived there for decades, that a foreign leader comes in and says you're not allowed to live there anymore. I don't think that that's right, and we should be standing up for that.
So let's throw it back then. From that view, if we're not talking about legal definitions, the partition between India and Pakistan...
The systematic forced removal of ethnic, racial or religious groups from a given area with the intent of making the society ethnically different. That's a legal definition.
That sounds very much like what Trump is talking about to me.
From what I've heard so far, nothing has been said about Palestinians not returning to that space.
Well, with all due respect, I think you need to go back to the press conference and listen to what he said.
I've read it multiple times. Palestinians, there's no word whatsoever about Palestinians not returning to the area.
Well, Trump is also talking about some Palestinians. He did say some, and that actually makes a big difference. And he's talking, there's a reason why Egypt and other countries have been up in arms about the idea of having to accept millions upon refugees. You just referenced it yourself when you said, David, that they are worried about having this number of refugees because of the amount of water. Well, if Trump isn't talking about having millions of refugees moving away from Gaza, why would on earth would these other countries be worried about it? So I think you need to take a position which actually makes sense. Your position doesn't make any sense, and it certainly doesn't make any sense for the so-called leader of the free world to be essentially what sounds to me like threatening a population. I don't think that's right, and I think Trump needs to think very seriously about what he's potentially doing to that region.
My position is that I want the death and destruction to stop.
Absolutely.
And I think we all agree with that. And there needs to be international support.
If I just say this point then, if we want the death and destruction to stop, do we not think that turfing a population out of a country that they have called home for a very long time will not foster generations upon generations of hatred and further atrocities? I think it's a very, very dangerous situation. And I find it really disappointing, really scary, actually, that a Conservative representative is sitting here genuinely saying that he thinks that what President Trump is saying was in any way, shape or form is the right thing to be said. I think that's really weighing and shows exactly how far the Conservative have gone from their base.
Marie, let's be realistic.
There
is no home at the moment.
Is it a comment on Labour policy, or is it a comment on this particular issue that we're discussing?
We have to focus on British values. We have to focus on getting to a solution which is going to be sustainable in an extraordinarily complex region. And what we've heard is an interplay where actually what we need to be focused in is what we can do as members of Parliament in the UK on a policy that this government has stood firm on, which is to achieve a two-state solution, and how we work with our partners internationally, how we use all bodies that, like UNRWA, like others, to reach that sustainable solution of a two-state situation and we've said where we would recognise Palestine, yes, but it's important to be repeated, because actually, if we get detracted from that, from the position,
presidents of the USA,
from the kind of discussion we've just heard from colleagues,
Marie, it's all well and good saying it repeatedly, it doesn't bring it into existence.
Well, it does, because
what happens to Hamas? This has been rolling on for years now.
If I may, because I listened very patiently to the two of you, I think it's really important that we look at what we want to achieve and the road to get there. And the road to get there is diplomacy. The road to get there is having conversations with people. The road to get there is getting aid in, is returning Palestinian people back to their homes so that they can rebuild their lives and to calmly and considerately
they should be moved, and only some can back to their homes. But understand
how we get to that two-state solution. And that roadmap is very clear from the British government. The roadmap of colleagues and the way that they are going to undertake that is very clear. And
is President Trump's plan misguided, yes or no?
I have made it clear that the position is that we want to get to a two-state solution.
Oh, okay. All right. We got another one from Scott in Northampton, which is on, I think it's Trump adjacent, Scott. US and EU dual citizen. The best of both worlds. You are the perfect solution for Keir Starmer. A foot in both camps. Go on, Scott.
Hi, Mr. Campbell.
Hello, Scott. Can I just say, by the way, I did mean to, because there was some controversy about UNRWA, the aid organisation. Israel accused 18 employees of taking part in the attacks. There was a UN investigation, found 9 employees may have been involved. The agency fired them. UN officials reject most of Israel's accusations against them. Many donors, including the UK and the European Union, have since resumed negotiations, insisting that it is now impartial. I just need to clarify that. But on this issue of tariffs, Scott, you carry on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And good morning to our fellow countrymen and our honorable MPs. Thank you for the invite again. I suppose I was thinking about yesterday after speaking to you and the team, how we would respond to a sort of VAT-like addition on top of our goods and services going to America, which obviously makes up a substantial part of our trade. And I think it's difficult for us to align it with what we already pay, a very substantial 20%, which is what we've been paying for a long time, including me on medication that I have to order from the USA on a monthly basis. When we're already obviously paying a substantial amount, which makes up, I think, the third biggest portion of HMRC revenue here at home. Is it not possible to look at how to use a favorite expression, swings and roundabouts, at adjusting that if indeed a tariff does come into play?
The tariff situation, it's a challenge for a lot of countries, isn't it? Can you understand it from President Trump's point of view?
I suppose if I actually may just follow up, Mr. Campbell, I was going to say, I think Trump has likened the tariff that he wants to impose on, I'm sure, forthcomingly, quite a few countries that have an unfair advantage on trade with the North American continent in general. And his analogy is, of course, that Europe pays a substantial VAT already, which is, whether we think of it or not, is a tariff that we ourselves, our government, imposes on all of us. And is it not sensible then that he insists on the same for goods coming into America?
It's a good lever, though. Is it not, Marie Goldman, Lib Dem MP for Chelmsford? It's a good lever for actually getting countries to abide by your wishes. That seems to an extent, be the case at the moment, Marie.
So I think what Trump is doing is, we've seen it with Canada, where he's threatened Canada, and then he's trying to claim a victory because Canada supposedly backed down, but actually what Canada did was essentially re-announce things that were already in place. I think he's trying to strong arm countries. I think he's trying to set out his stall in the first 100 days of his presidency. But again, he's unpredictable. We don't really know what he means by a lot of these threats that he's making. Whether trade wars, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think anybody really wins out of a trade war. And I think it's really important that we make sure that we don't have to rely on what President Trump is going to do in this country. And that's why it's really important that we have proper trade agreements with other countries, and in particular with our closest partners, which are, all the countries in the EU, which is why we've proposed and want to see set up very, very quickly a new customs union with the EU so that we can trade more freely.
A new customs union?
Set
or
up.
The current customs union?
And so we're not talking about joining the existing customs union. We're talking about setting up a new customs union, essentially a new trading agreement. I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about. Well,
who else would be in it?
We would be negotiating with the EU. The terms may be different from the existing customs union, but we're talking about, that's the point of negotiating. But the point is that we have this huge market right on our doorstep that we used to trade with freely, and businesses in the UK have been hit by the botched Brexit agreement that we had, and we need to recognise that it has hit businesses hugely. 75% of businesses.
Would any countries with the European Union be in your purported new customs union?
Sorry,
apart
say
from
that again.
ourselves, would any other countries out with the European Union be in this new customs union?
Well, the new customs union, we're talking about wanting to negotiate that with the EU, so it would be the countries, within the EU. So the important thing is that we get proper trade agreements in place, and we don't have those in place at the moment. Now, we can't be reliant on whatever Donald Trump says next, whatever whim comes into his mind next, and that's why it's really important that we get these proper trading agreements in place, and we get rid of the red tape that has been introduced by the really terrible Brexit agreement that's been put in place.
So we'd have to abide in this new customs union. We'd have to abide by more standards and more laws and more rules. David Reed, what do you think about this new customs union idea?
I'm trying very hard to try and work out what's just being said. So is this Lib Dem policy that you want to create a brand new customs union that's separate to the one that exists already, and then you expect to go to the EU and then for them to agree on that and have two customs union running side by side?
It's called a trade agreement. That's exactly what trade agreements do. They are, by definition, a negotiation between two different sets of countries.
I'm well aware of that.
Yeah, so whatever you call it. So we're calling it a customs union because that's what we want. That's what we want to negotiate. So I don't really see why you find it difficult to understand why that is. But this customs union might have different rules and regulations in it, as in different agreements about trade than in the customs union that we left, where, by the way, we had a huge seat at the table when we were a member of the EU, and we got to call a lot more of the shots than we do now. We have to recognise, unfortunately, that we are a third country. We're outside of that. We don't get to call as many of the shots now, and we're in this unfortunate position that the Conservatives put us into with their botched Brexit agreement, that businesses are paying the price of it, and crikey, they're paying the price of it on top of all the other challenges that they're having to face. It's all very well the Labour government, for example, saying, we want, we're going to increase GDP and growth by having a third runway at Heathrow. Well, actually, if we got a proper agreement with the EU, we believe that it would be bringing 15 times more revenue than a third runway at Heathrow. And yet, for some reason, the Labour government is completely running away from that.
David, do you think and we'll get Marie Tidball to answer this in a sec, do you think the Labour government's tiptoeing in through the back door, David?
It's what it looks like at the moment. And from what we've heard from the French and from the Germans, if that is the case, they're not going to make it easy for us. So the conversations that have been had with the Prime Minister and other European leaders have been around security and defence pacts, but they won't be just direct deals on those issues. They will be seen as a package of deals where our fishing rights will be...
good for growth, though.
Really?
Well, our economy's been hit a lot by leaving, has it not? Yeah. According to all the respected organisations who have calculators.
So look, if we look back over the last 8 or so years, this was a democratic process that the UK public voted on. They decided to leave, and now we have left that.
Can I just say, though, because David, you interrupted me several times before, so I'm just doing it this once, because you say it was a democratic process that the UK public voted on. There were many, many people in the Brexit campaign, in the Leave campaign, who said that nobody is threatening the UK's position in the single market or the customs union. So to say that that's what the public voted on, all of the public, that can't be the case, because they were told many times by people in the Leave campaign, including people in your party, that nobody was threatening the UK's position in the single market and the customs union, and yet we left.
But Marie, you just made the exact point. So that we used to have a big seat at the table. Are you saying partially leave and then be dictated to by the European Union? I'm saying that when you said it was a democratic choice, I'm saying you didn't ask the question. You didn't ask the question about leaving the single market and the customs union, and that's massively affected trade and our GDP. And
Marie Tidball, I need to give Marie Tidball from Labour another chance. Can I just say to all of you, and I know you will want to comment on this, we had the most extraordinary first-hour phone-in on this particular issue. We're going to hear some of what the families of Valdo Calacane's victims say. They're giving a press conference shortly responding to the NHS England report outlining the care he received, the opportunities missed to stop him killing 3 people. It's an issue that matters hugely to so many of our listeners. Testament to that is the number of calls we had this morning, people in desperate situations with their own personal lived experience. So I will have to interrupt you, probably quite rudely. It's not for the first time, probably Marie Tidball. But Labour MP for Penistone and Stocksbridge. How much closer can we get? And would it be good for growth?
So I just think what we heard there between my two colleagues on the panel is a rehearsal and repeating of arguments of division. And what we as a government are really trying to maximise is opportunities for growth, opportunities to maximise our living standards, building positive relationships with our European colleagues. And I might just add, just to reflect on the tariff points that colleagues discussed previously that I hadn't come in on, these shouldn't be mutually exclusive. The US is one of our most indispensable allies. We've got a $300 billion trading agreement. We are each other's largest investors with 1.2 trillion of investment going into each country. And Trump has said that Keir Starmer thus far is doing a good job, and he likes him a lot. So we are working on continuing to build that positive relationship, because that matters to growth, that matters to living standards in my constituency. And on the EU, we are building those positive relationships, and we want to make sure, for example, research and development, that we're doing the important work around that. We've got a fantastic amount of work that's been done on the NATO Defence Innovation Accelerator in the UK, and we want to build on that with increasing...
Do you acknowledge this has been a massive hit to the economy? A significant hit to the economy leaving the European Union. Do you acknowledge what the experts say?
Look, the evidence speaks for itself, but we're not going to change or reverse the result that happened. That was democratically voted on back in 2016. What we are trying to do now is move forward across some key areas and opportunities for collaboration with our European colleagues. As I say already, on research and development, on making sure that we've got improved military mobilisation with our partners, and making sure that we're also creating the cross-border safety. And this is really important. The cross-border safety arrangements, so that we can crack down on criminal smuggling gangs. All of those things make us economically better off and matter most to my constituents.
Also, well held, but also Marie Goldman, being outside the European Union, being outside because of Brexit, we're far better able to cope with this tariff situation, strike our own deals and deal with President Trump, because he hates the EU lot. So can you admit we're in a better position now because of Brexit, Marie Goldman?
No, because we're a much smaller country. We have less buying power, and also we don't have those free trade agreements with our closest trading partner, which is the EU. So we're being hit by both sides, and we don't have the control and influence that we would have had before. Now, I totally accept that we've left the EU, etc., but there are things that we can do to improve those trading relationships, and Labour is shying away from it, and sounds like the Conservatives just aren't interested in it at all.
I don't think that's true. I'm sorry. There's no evidence to say that we're shying away from it. Keir's building really close relationships across the EU and with the US.
Doesn't lower the cost that businesses have to pay every single day when they are trying to import goods and sell goods abroad. It really doesn't help them at all. So, yes, mate, closer relationships, great, but where's the actual action? Where's the output from that?
The action is, as I've said, we've got to be forward-focused here. We've got to understand how we can ensure that we're collaborating on research and development to make sure that we're at the forefront of science and technology, which is a positive growth area for our economy in the UK.
Marie,
and we've got the university.
Hang on, make that easy for us.
I think that we have seen a really positive response from the EU. They want to work with us. Yeah, we have. They want to work with us. We are seeing those meetings happen between colleagues and allies in Europe. And I think that that's exactly where we have to be at this point in time. We can't change history. We are at a point where we have to look forward. We have to understand where we can grow the economy in the UK based on our strengths. Science and technology is one of those many strengths. And we are working together with colleagues across Europe to do that.
You make it sound very easy, but we've just gone through a very painful 8 years of removing ourselves
from... Because of your party. Because of the botched Brexit deal that your party left us with as a legacy. No, I'm sorry. I won't relax. In my constituency, I see a huge impact of your government over the last 14 years. I've got 7 children. I've got 7 children in every classroom of 30 living in poverty. I have got schools that cannot cope because of what they've been left with by your government. I have got people on waiting lists in my constituency that cannot go back to work because they cannot get an NHS appointment in time because of 14 years of your government. So I will not relax, because my job is to best represent my constituents, is to make sure we've got a government that is focused on what we can deliver day after day after day. And I will not apologise for doing that.
Yeah. Marie, look, your government at the moment are going through the process of blaming the Conservatives for absolutely everything. But
because you've been in government for 14 years.
Okay,
And it's important. What we haven't heard from your leader is any sense of an understanding of the record that they've left. Not once has Kami said to this country, I am sorry. I am sorry that I, amongst all other Tory colleagues that voted for Liz Truss's disastrous budget, that voted for that, who left people in my constituency.
Did you vote? Okay, let's give David a chance.
New homeowners that bought houses and can't afford to pay their mortgages anymore because of the impact of the economic decision making of that Prime Minister. And there's no preparedness.
Okay, I'm not going to get a word in here. I can see that.
I've been doing phone-in debates and TV debates for decades, and this is by far the most difficult I've ever had to do. With great respect, but no, it's great hearing from you. It's great hearing your passion. David Reid, did you vote for Liz Truss's budget?
So they were the right ideas at the wrong time. So we weren't in a position of stability after having a really expensive pandemic. Yes, we all want to see lower taxes, but they weren't the right ideas at the time. What we needed at that point was stability. The markets reacted in a certain way.
Was it a disaster? Because I know there's a debate within the shadow cabinet about how far they should retro kick her reputation, or they should just be a bit sotto voce about it, as our EU colleagues say.
So do you know what I find from having these conversations is that I am a new MP. I've come into Parliament because I want to improve both my home and my country. And this sort of disease that we have as a country, where we just keep talking about the past over and over again, without looking to the future and working out a plan on how.
But you came in 2010. You didn't stop banging on about Gordon Brown and Tony Blair and the financial crisis.
I know, and that is the type of politics that we need to move away from as quickly as possible now. We need to look at what this country can do. We have so many great strengths, and we need to make sure that gets put to work. It's very important to integrate the past so that we have a good view of how to move forwards, but just this obsession that we have with relitigating everything that's happened. Like, just the public understand this. We had a financial crash in 2010, massive economic damage.
So you're talking about the past now.
I know, the point I'm making.
You're talking about the past now.
Marie,
and I'd be very happy to talk about what our plan is.
Okay.
25 billion on the NHS.
I don't think the public see that at the moment.
Well, that's what we're delivering.
The point I'm making is that it's easy to just relocate.
Can I hold?
Past
wait a minute, everybody. Let's just have 10-second silence.